and welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel. My guest this week is Royston Langdon. He was the lead singer of the band Spacehog. Their best known single is In the Meantime. It reached 32 on the Billboard's Hot 100 in 1996. However, the song's gotten a new life thanks to placement in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 movie. It's been reimagined along with the rest of the band's debut album, Resident Alien, thanks to Royston on his upcoming album, President Alien, out tomorrow. We discuss the follow-up to Resident Alien, the Chinese album, and he tells me who has a better copy of the version of that album. We also discuss his boxing career, and he formally issues a public apology to Sean Lennon. Find out why. I really enjoyed my conversation with Royston. He's a real character, and I hope you do as well. So Royston, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Noel. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So President Alien comes out July 14th, which is like a reimagined, it's like kind of stripped down version of Resident Alien, Spacehog's first album, very successful album. All those years ago, I don't want to make us seem pretty old, but it just seems like yesterday that album came out. What was the idea of this project, and like was it kind of like born out of the age of COVID?
Well, I mean, it was born out of originally, me making music, my vocation, my life, It just happens that this particular series of recordings were done during the sort of COVID sort of liftoff, and then all the songs were recorded back in England, which is I hadn't recorded there. So the last time actually I remembered I recorded there was in Chipping Norton, and it was in 1995, before Resident Alien had come out.
Okay.
And we went there to do a version of Senses Working Overtime.
Oh, XTC.
XTC tribute record.
Senses working overtime, trying to take this all, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Senses working overtime, trying to taste the difference between lemon and lime, pain and pleasure, and the church bells softly chime.
with a guy called David Yazbek,
Okay.
and who went on to do this like really huge Broadway play. But he was producing rock and roll at that time. We went. I think it was Radiohead's, or where Radiohead had recorded in near Chipping Norton. So yeah, that was the last time, and then yeah, I found myself sort of staying there because the project I was doing something over the sort of holidays of 1920 sort of thing in England, in London.
Okay.
My son was at school in London at the time, and my family obviously Yorkshire still and all that. So, well, not obviously, but they are, some of them. And the gig, I had a gig in New York to play bass on this guy Stephen Sollins's record.
Okay.
Really, really cool, lovely chap. But because of the sort of precariousness of the world, this was about March by this stage, decided that we would sort of postpone the recording session. And so that left me in England. And, as I say, my son was there. And so I just stayed. And I ended up getting this really amazing place on the sort of gateway to the Dales in a little town. And I just found it a really good place to work because it was so quiet, and it was I hadn't really been back properly since I was 21, and all of a sudden I'm approaching the winter of my 50th year,
Right.
and the whole world is dying, and it's like there's not a whole lot of time. It feels like sometimes, and there's a lot of suffering, I think, and people are quite isolated. And I think, firstly, I started playing on like Facebook Live and playing in my mum's house on the piano, and singing songs. And it seemed to really soothe people, and it was really cool. So I formed this collection of people around the Patreon thing. And that's really where it came from. I'm so grateful to those people because they helped sort of hold it for me over a period of a year and a half. Otherwise, I don't think I would have done it, because I'm not really one for sort of, personally, I'm not one for sort of, I mean, nostalgia is interesting and has its thing,
Right.
But I'm not one, as a writer anyway, I can only sort of go onwards, and that's really important that one thing leads to another, as they say. In that way, for me anyway. Otherwise, I get really a bit disjointed, I think, as a, and then I don't want to do it, at all. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, that kind of almost 3-year period. I mean, there was touring, almost like 2 years for across the board in the whole industry, and music sales are nothing anymore. So. I know a lot of artists went the way you did with the streaming, the Facebook Lives. Had the pandemic been 5-10 years earlier, could musicians survive?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, musicians have always survived. I don't think there's any reason why they won't in the future.
Right.
The law of averages suggests they will, as Viv Savage might have said. Yeah. I mean, we've been doing it since feudal times,
right.
Since the court, and no, really. I mean, that's really where it comes from. It's it's just a way of getting out of doing the washing up, so you can keep your hands softer.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right. So what made you pursue this career?
Oh man. I don't know. I just sort of, originally I wanted to go to art school, like a lot of musicians, I think it turns out. due to certain certain happenstance around that time, and also my sort of socio-economic limitations, put me in a situation that wasn't particularly, creatively positive for me. So I had to sort of move beyond that. And
Right.
that's always been the thing that I do, so yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing then, and it's still the same today.
Right. Do you find your like process for writing a song, has it changed since you first started?
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course, because I can't, I'm not 21 anymore.
Right.
Looking through that particular lens, or, of my experience is
Yeah.
completely,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
different. I'm
Yeah.
51,
Right. So you're more jaded now than you were when you were 21.
Oh, no, I think I'm probably less jaded, actually.
Okay.
I was a lot more jaded when I was younger, I think. Yeah. Oh, it certainly sort of closed down,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'd imagine now you feel like you're a better songwriter.
Well, not initially. I think there was different periods. I sort of go in and out of it. I think when I was young, I wasn't, I started off really young, 12, sort of being in bands and whatnot. And then I started writing songs a little bit, and then I just worked on it a lot, man. It's this sort of 10,000 hours thing I did before I ever came to New York,
Right. Okay.
So a lot of those songs for Resident Alien were written before I ever got to New York. So when I got back to do them, when I was doing them again,
Yeah.
I was approaching them not as the recordings from Resident Alien, because they're just my songs,
Right.
So I just had to go sort of inward, really. It was more of a sort of reaction to that as an older person, So, and maybe people could sort of identify with that, having had the experience that they had when, they were younger too, maybe not as old as me or you. I don't know how
Yeah.
old you are, bro.
Yeah, I'm closing in on you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Were you able to relate to all the songs as you were re-recording them?
Of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, of course. It's a vibrational thing, really. It's
Yeah.
in a way, the idea and yeah, I mean, I can relate in a nostalgic way. I can relate not in as I say, I can relate in a sort of in a sort of um as a writer now, to my younger self. But yeah, it's fascinating to be in the same place where a lot of those songs came. Not all of them. Some came from New York,
Yeah.
afterwards, but a lot of them came from, and be back there in this, really, because there was no one around. It's like being in some sort of dream in England.
Yeah.
It was pretty beautiful, actually. Weird. The world was like dying. I felt horrible, empathy for like people who couldn't see people, and all that sort of horror, people losing family members.
Yeah.
Terrible, and just the general sort of conscious anxiety, that had to sort of go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think, music became really useful for that. And, there's so much more we can do with the internet than we're doing, It's hard. It's some of the old sort of stalwarts of the old form of the music industry are still trying to be like, gatekeepers.
Right.
But really what it's really become about now are the curators, and in a way, the great thing about having a certain amount of experience and time is hopefully there's a way to sort of curate all that, and sort of, like I say, I think my next work is sort of bringing all of this together,
And because there are like
this sort of,
I mean, because there you think there are pros and cons of like the streaming industry now. I mean, pro is you can get the songs anytime you want. The cons are mainly for the artists for not, getting paid what they rightfully deserve. But like, do you feel that it's kind of a necessary evil to have like, streaming sites for you?
Look, that genie was out of the box in the 80s, you know. Um, we're dealing with with a new medium in a way because of the way that you're able to release things,
Right.
that in of itself, and unrelease things and put things out again. I
Yeah.
mean, you can technically do that. So, I don't know. Is that a good idea? I think there's something good about, I think what ultimately becomes interesting for me anyway, say for a painter that I might admire, it's the body of the work throughout their life that becomes fascinating. And all the good bits and maybe the not so good bits, but generally the whole thing. So it's not for me to say,
Right. Okay.
I only do what I
Control.
make. But yeah. I make things in some ways very similar, in a similar way to how I did when I was, 14, 15, 16, first sort of recording things in
Yeah. So what made you
tape.
So what made you settle in New York for such a long time? I mean, I'm a New Yorker, born and raised there. So like, well, what made you first move there and stay there for
Oh,
such
I love New York, man. When I got there, it was like so emancipating for me. England and sort of club and pub culture and the life, the university life. Not that I didn't go to university, but I was around. I lived in a university town, Leeds.
Right.
So, well, that had a profound effect, I think.
And you're now in California, so what made you move out there?
Same thing. I mean,
Right.
same thing. Probably getting out of Leeds.
Yeah. Right.
I love Leeds. I love Leeds. I really do. I have a record under the title Leeds.
Right. Leeds.
Under
Yeah.
the name. Yeah, everything's dandy, and
Right.
it's cool too. Yeah, I mean, I moved to New York. New York was just such a great place, a very creative place, not just for me, but everybody was making things. It was great,
Yeah.
and ultimately that creates an environment of peace, I think, because people are making things, they're not, war.
Yeah.
War's easy to understand because it's, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
easy.
Simple.
Understanding peace is very difficult. It's not, what really is that? And really, it's creation. It's making things. Not just art necessarily, but
Yeah.
also all spokes of life. Family and friends,
Right.
and social life, and goddamn social life.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned Leeds. So what made you like decide to release like an album under, that name and not like your own name for a solo album?
Because I had this friend of mine, and I said, "Man, I've made this music. I want to put it out, and but I don't want to put it out under my own name." I said, "Have you got any ideas?" He said, "Well, whenever you meet someone," and he's my friend who's often with me, and we were in different environments, meeting different people. My name often might precede my meeting somebody. and that might make some sort of assumption, but the second question is always where you from, and I would say Leeds,
Yeah.
So he said, why don't you just call yourself Leeds? So that was it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think Never Let Go of Your Hand I love that song. It's like favorite off that album. It's really, really good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So then like the Chains EP, then you just kind of reverted back to your own name for that. Yeah. So is that just
Yeah.
you just figured now was the time to
Well, I didn't
do
revert
something?
back. That's the first time I've ever put anything out under my
Okay,
own
well,
name.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, that's the first really for me. That
Right.
was the change thing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just starting to build it really,
Okay.
and hopefully people can take some of these recordings from President Alien and use them in other ways, because I think they're quite, sampleable, and
Yeah.
I'm totally into for people using everything without any,
Yeah.
but or at least try it.
Right.
I'd say,
Yeah.
try and get away with it.
Right. Because on the Chains EP, but you had a great cover of Bowie's "Ashes to Ashes," and
Yeah,
there's a lot of like
thank
influence,
you.
yeah, of Bowie and some of the Spacehog songs. So I'd imagine you're a huge fan. You're also touring with the group, right? The Bowie tribute band.
Well, I was, but I don't think I am anymore, man. No,
Okay.
no. I think, unfortunately, Peter Murphy's not doing so great.
Yeah. So
Um, I'm sad to say, and I really wish him speedy recovery, but he's not very well.
okay. Yeah. Well, when you did that, how much fun was that experience?
When I did do it
Yeah.
before, oh, great, man! It was.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It was a cathartic experience for me because, um, yeah, I got to sing some of those songs with some great players. I
Right.
mean, I got to tour with Adrian Belew, man.
Right. Yeah.
It's like he was my man, and that guy's amazing. He's just on so many levels,
Yeah.
like as a friend and as just well, we're not like we don't speak to each other all the time, but I really just really enjoyed being around him
Yeah.
and getting to hear his experience and getting
Yeah.
to share that, and really intimately, and his lovely wife, and just great, man. Great guy, and great musician. Just somebody to really
Right.
get to sort of work, just be around. It's great. I love that sort of thing. And also, I got to sort of make my own piece with Zig for myself.
Right.
It was a nice thing, and I think maybe that might be it for me now on that.
Okay.
Because I don't think what's going on is going to happen.
Right.
Because sadly, because of Peter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's a real shame. Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Bowie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It was a cathartic way for me to get to say my goodbyes.
Okay.
I didn't get to say goodbye really. No, a lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people. There's a huge sadness felt around the planet. Um, yeah.
Because I always feel like the Beatles were like the first like kind of job creators in the art. Everyone fell in love with the Beatles. That's all of this and that. And I feel the next generation was Bowie. I think Bowie got
Yeah.
people to become musicians and whatnot. I think he was the next guy.
Yeah. I think maybe he was, and yeah, but he was his own thing too. He became all his myriad of sort of magpie
Yeah.
styles. He was his own guy, and just what a force, He was a
Yeah.
real force, and yeah, I was lucky enough to spend quite a bit of time with him here and there.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a few. We had a few moments together,
Oh, that's
and I'm really grateful for that. Yes.
Yeah.
And he was such a generous man,
Right.
such a kind, generous man, with all of that, And he knew,
Yeah.
I was a massive fan. And I was introduced by Alexander McQueen.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I'd had the opportunity to meet Bowie a bunch of times before, and I'd always avoided it because I didn't want to meet him.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at that time. And then Lee, as he was known, sort of followed through and something, as he's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
And he set something up for us to have dinner in New York, and we did. And then it was, we were friends, we sort of became friends.
Right.
He'd send me emails, he'd come pick me up sometimes, take me to his rehearsals. He knew, because I had this strange experience with the record Low, where I got kicked out of school when I was 16. I wanted to go to art school.
Okay.
I got kicked out of school, and I had this thing called, I went to France and traveling, and I found out that from him that where I was at the time was near where he recorded in the Chateau. I always thought he recorded it in Berlin, Low, but he didn't record it in France. Most of it, I think, is in France, in the Chateau. So that was a favorite of mine, because I would listen to it there, and I didn't know that it was recorded where I was around about.
Right.
So, and then, I had some really interesting experiences with Ziggy.
That's great. Yeah. They just had a Bowie fan convention a couple weeks ago in New York, where they had a ton of
the flashes, people with the flashes on the faces.
Yeah, they had that too. And had a Bowie ball at night, and they had a bunch of people who worked with him, do conferences and speakers, and it was. I wish I could have gone. It was like sold out, but I mean, his music lives on. He's fantastic. Yeah,
it does, man. It does.
Yeah.
Bowie's doing just fine. Trust me.
Exactly.
Bowie be thy name.
Up there, right?
Well, in heaven.
Yeah. Ground control, right? Totally. Now, like obviously the single that the band's known for, In the Meantime, kind of has like a new life now thanks to Guardians of the Galaxy. It's featured in the movie and in the trailer. you mentioned people earlier trying to sample your songs. When they take your song to put in a massive movie like that, I mean, it's got to feel pretty good.
Feels great, man. Yeah, feels great. I should stress at this point, I don't have any control over that stuff at this
Right.
point in my.
Yeah.
It's sort of been removed from my hands.
Okay.
So yeah, but it feels great on a sort of message level. I'm very proud of all my work, and obviously that song particularly has made such a connection throughout the planet that
Yeah.
you know I'm humbled and it's a real blessing because it's I think it's a good message, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it stands up today, you know. Yeah, I like the idea. It's a good idea. I think again, it's expensive. So, you know, with the movie, and the way that they've incorporated the composer for this brilliant composer guy, John Murphy,
Yeah.
a Liverpudlian, fellow Englishman, just a really powerful force, man. You know, musically, and so. You know, to be sort of surprised because I didn't know this was happening. You know,
Okay.
I hear it when everybody hears it. It's
Okay.
weird, even though I wrote it. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't. It's weird. So, but that's awesome, man, and it's amazing because like young people hear it and they think, "Oh my God, I've discovered this really cool band that you know nobody's heard of ever." And
Right.
nobody really has for a long time.
Yeah.
Because and also, you know, Spacehog was such a sort of bright light that burned
Yeah.
out quite quickly. We were not able to hold that flame
Right. Yeah.
collectively, you know.
Yeah.
As older, I think interestingly, we're talking about doing something next year.
Oh, nice. Okay.
This time next year. So we'll see
Right.
if that happens. But either way, man, I mean, I'm making music and
Yeah.
it'd be nice to play some shows. Obviously, we were going to go to South America and whatnot with the Bowie thing, and that's not happening. So,
Yeah.
so I'm probably going to be, you know, going back to driving Uber. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. Just
Right.
kidding.
Yeah, exactly. You'll do Lyft instead. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah. Right.
I'm working on boxing. I've started a boxing career now. It's going
Okay.
quite well. Yeah.
All right.
See, yeah. It's if you see it, I got a little bit of an injury there. It's I broke my nose a few weeks ago. So
Ooh.
yeah, well, it's not, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's
I
not
think
the fight itself. The fight was good, successful, very successful. It was just getting in the shower afterwards was really hard.
yeah.
So those glass doors, you know, they're really
Yeah.
hard to see. Sometimes,
Right.
especially for us, hard of sight,
Hard.
like
Yeah.
myself, hard of sight.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I have going for me. I got good eyesight. Everything else is
Already?
leaving my, you know. So
Have you ever thought of boxing?
just video games. You know, the boxing video games. That's about it.
Oh,
Ready to get hit now. It's like what Mike
no.
Tyson said, you know, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, that's the thing, man. You have to, you know, stay committed, and
yeah,
it's it's a meditation, you know.
yeah.
Um,
Some people don't realize the footwork's probably the hardest thing out of all of it.
oh well, that depends, man. Not if you, you know, not if you're keyed in like myself, you know.
Right.
But you have to wait for there's a documentary coming out about my new boxing career.
What it's called?
I'm. It's not got a title yet.
Okay.
Presently, it's called L.A. Runner.
Okay.
But yeah, but that's just a working title.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when's your next fight?
Week on Tuesday.
All right, cool. Good luck.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, just keep them up, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I heard that you played Lennon's bass on the recording in the meantime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How'd that come about?
Well, it's a long story, man. I don't know if I want to bore your listeners.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, is this? But I'm. You're gonna put this on. Are we gonna be? Am I gonna be in the camera? Is the camera gonna be out there?
No, I'm just gonna lift you
No,
up. Yeah, because
just
no
gonna
one,
be black it out.
yeah, no one
Obviously.
wants to see my face
Um,
anyway. So
no, all mine, man. Especially what with the boxing
with the
injury,
boxing,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah. It can be alarming. Yeah. Well, oh, so how I met Sean through this girl Jenny Golden that my brother knew, Anthony knew, and met in London before he ever came to New York.
Okay.
And she, at the school she went to on the Upper West Side in New York, was good. They had a chaperone system at school, so every older child was given a younger child to sort of chaperone.
Okay.
And she just happened to be put with Sean Lennon.
Hmm.
And so before Richard joined the band, we made a demo of In the Meantime, which you can hear. It's on the film Nadia, which was made by Michael Aroniyeda. I don't quite know how you say that properly, but anyway, he's a friend of mine back then, and Sean came to the studio after we made that recording with Jenny, and he couldn't believe it, and he really liked it. And then I went back to the Dakota with him, and he was like, I don't know quite how it happened, but I ended up borrowing a bass, Rickenbacker bass, and went back, and we had a few sessions. The recording wasn't finished. I remember Sean being shot. We went back to the Dakota, which was Yoko and John's original apartment when they first moved in there, which is actually below Yoko's now apartment there. One floor below, sort of a smaller apartment, but really incredible. It was profound being in that space. I was only 21, come straight from Leeds, and I was struck by Sean's sort of dignity, really, and sort of sovereignty almost, natural for such a young man,
Right.
young, but he was about my son's age now, maybe a bit younger actually, and he just was really poised, and I was struck by that, and he still is. We ran into each other not so long ago in an airport. At an airport.
Okay.
It was kind of funny. So yeah, but I love Sean very much, and he sings on. I just want to clear this up, actually, because the Sean that's credited on Resident Alien is Sean Lennon, the singer on Starside, the song Starside. And I just put Sean. I made those titles, those credits myself on my typewriter, my apartment on 110th Street in Broadway, New York. And I just didn't want to put Lennon name because I didn't want to sort of co-opt that, or sort of, at the time. I mean, and he subsequently was quite angry with me for not putting Lennon up.
Okay.
And, I should have put Sean Ono Lennon. That's his name. And I wasn't. I don't know. I can't really explain it. I was very young at the time, and as I say, I was making sure I was writing out these things myself, which, which I did. So yeah.
Okay.
But I apologize, Sean, publicly to you. here and now for not including you in the credits. So henceforth, let it be known that that is Sean Lennon singing backing vocals on Starside.
Like when you fall from the sky and see the world from the side. Love always gets in the way, just like in Hutchins' scare. But I like to leave without a trace, blow you all to outer space. See you later, now I'm gone. So long, I'll see you when I'm starside. Tell me when I'm home. Starside. Tell me when I'm home. See how you fall like a child. Watch them glide. Love always gets in the way, just like in Hutchins' scare. I'd like to leave without a trace, press record and erase. See you later, now I'm gone. So long, I'll see you when I'm starside. Tell me when I'm home. Starside. Tell me when I'm home. Tell me when I'm
Hopefully he's listening. So yeah. So is that when you came up with the Ray Sprinkles name for the credits as well?
That was Ray Sprinkles was Johnny Craig, because Johnny worked in a cafe. That's where I met him originally, on Second Avenue, and I was very, very poor at the time. I still am, by the way. You should know. I mean, people think I'm very wealthy, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't want to own anything.
Right.
But Johnny would make me a free cappuccino in the morning on my way to the studio. I worked at Baby Monster Recording Studios. And he would ask me, would you like sprinkles, meaning the chocolate stuff,
Yeah.
on the top of the thing? Because it was his job. He made coffee in the morning. And he'd give me a free bagel with cream cheese on it, too. It was so sweet.
Right.
And I was, I was literally starving. I was a starving artist,
Right.
with no money. I was eating food out of the garbage at the studio, the recording studio. People, finish the food and put it in the trash. And I had the keys to the studio, which was great. So I'd eat the food they'd left over, stay all night and record till like 5 a.m. Sleep on the couch. I had my own tape, my own 2-inch tape.
Yeah.
So, but there was all sorts of bands in there, like the Ramones, Dinosaur Jr.,
Right.
Pavement. Bryce Goggin did all these records. He was
Okay.
he was the assistant on a lot of these records,
Right.
and I was just the general dog's body, basically. I was the guy moving the mic stands, but I was there. I saw it all happen. I got a lot of ideas from that time. It was a really important time for me.
Yeah.
And New York was such a great place at that time, creatively, on all levels, not just in music, but my world ended up in music, and it was not to harp onto a sort of thing, but the 90s, mid-90s, early to mid-90s, I think was the catalyst to what came, like the Strokes and all that sort of thing that came, Interpol, that came out of that thing. But it sort of happened before that in a weird way, and it wasn't all just, we were sort of put down as this sort of glam rock band and David Bowie and all that, and what, Lou Reed or whatever. But it was so much more than that, that the band were informed by at that time, and the collective energy that ultimately became the ultimate, creative force of the band, which was the four of us with Bryce,
Right.
I think. Yeah. And Seymour, being just a great, a great, So we have to think of new ways to come up with Seymours, and that's maybe where the internet can be more helpful,
Right.
Than it is right now, creating ways of patronage,
So the second album, the Chinese album, which I really liked as well, it took a couple of years after Resident Alien to come out, and then wasn't successful. Why do you feel that way?
Why do I feel what way?
I mean, commercially, it didn't, compare to the first album.
Well, I guess because people didn't buy as many of them.
Was there like a lot of pressure on you guys from the record company?
I think there was pressure on people. Yeah. Yeah, there was pressure, man. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, it was a big. With all sorts of things happen, man. There, behind the scenes, we moved labels from Elektra to Warner Brothers, from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Okay.
So yeah, it was, there's lots of, I think, reasons why the record didn't connect, but I think also what was going on at that time was very different in America, particularly subsequently, and then you sort of had this sort of upsurge of sort of a violent thing, and like a sort of Limp Bizkit thing and all that thing, which was not what felt, interesting to me.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess that became overshadowed by a more sort of obvious thrust of that sort of music at that time, and as a result, there was a thing, I think when Kurt Cobain died, and because he really brought about a change, in the way that not just music is, but all sorts of things, gender and relationships to that, and yeah, creativity, extraordinary creativity. And I think somewhat there were other things that came around at that time musically that were of a similar thing. There was a sort of deeper a deeper resonance, was, in terms of the music, I think. But it went a little different, and I think that became difficult for that record to sort of get over the sort of those hurdles, because it wasn't such an obvious record. And also, honestly, it had been re-delivered back to me to redo, because I'd put some recordings on there from a film that they hadn't secured the rights to.
Okay.
And wouldn't, they said, be able to, and that I needed to change it. So there is a version of the Chinese album, and the only person who I know, and I was saying this to my son yesterday, that has a copy of it is Liv.
Oh, wow.
She's got it on CD somewhere, and she's the ultimate, hoarder.
Yeah.
And she gets everything, she's got it. She's got it, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know where it is. Anyway, but yeah, somewhere out there is another version that I think works better. Has a few different songs and a few more songs, actually, I think. It's a bit different.
Yeah. Would you ever consider reimagining that?
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I don't see what the big deal is personally. It was an old movie from the 1940s.
Right.
It wasn't anyway, I think it was something to do with, I don't know what it was, man, but it's really one of those unfortunate things. That's why I don't mind people sampling my stuff.
Yeah.
Either, in some way, shape or form.
Right.
Different to sort of steal someone's idea.
Yeah.
That's different. That's or you know what I mean? That's just not interesting. So but I think the record stands up today for what it is now, and it means a lot to me. It's strangely that one, I remember spending a lot of time riding it in France in the countryside. It's strange. Bring it back to Ziggy again. But yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Really, we all have these different sort of, including the sort of the person that sort of puts it out there.
Yeah.
That's all I do, and that's the thing about releasing something. Yeah. And that's what I hope people see in this, or can feel in this experience of listening to these songs down the line.
Right. Absolutely.
Particularly on the vinyl, because there's an analog form that suggests to the ear that puts one in that time, again as well, in a beautiful, beautiful way. And it's also really good for, dare I say, independent artists like myself today.
My favorite song of not just a particular album of yours, "A Real Waste of Food" from Hagacy. I absolutely love that song.
threatened with disaster. But he can't stop his mind from attracting the flies. But this train don't travel any faster. With a guy with his croak, he maintains it's just the way I am. I live in the flames. Well, try to avoid being burnt next time, sunshine, and you'll maybe do us all a favor. This is only trick till the summertime's over. This is only trick till the tide rides high. It's our only chance for the rest of forever. He's a rose of food and he's looking at you. Looking at you. The real ways are blue. Looking at you. The real ways are blue. Looking at you. Looking at you. Looking. This is only trick till the summertime's over. This is only trick till the tide rides high. It's our only chance for the rest of forever. It's a rose of food and it's looking at you. This is only trick till the summertime's over. This is only trick till the tide rides high. It's our only chance for the rest of forever. It's a rose of food and it's looking at you. He's looking at you.
And I know that album also, you can say, different period. It was a couple of years after the Chinese album. That was like, it's the age of when Napster started and whatnot. The music industry can really shift, and I felt that album kind of, got lost in the shuffle as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't really like that record that much.
Okay.
Personally. So I personally am not. I mean, again, maybe I don't think it, but that's to do with my own experience, I think, of it, and sort of,
Right.
sort of disassociation of ourselves and to each other, the band,
Okay.
That was sort of like the beginning of that, I think, and but people like that record, man. So who am I to say?
Right.
For me, it was not such a joyous, but it doesn't always have to be, making
Yeah.
something. You know what I mean? And that was hard, man, dark at times, but also really light at times too. We'd had many attempts at making that record that were subsequently, thwarted and abandoned.
Right.
So there are many recordings out there. We did a whole series with Sean Slade and Paul Caldery. We worked with Radiohead and all that on their early record, I guess. We did another record version with Bryce, I think. I produced some of it that was canned. There's all sorts of recordings, and then we got to change labels and be with Danny Goldberg and also Daniel Glass then, before he started doing Glass Note.
Okay.
He was doing Artemis with Goldberg.
Okay.
Danny.
Right. So do you remember where you were the first time you heard like one of your songs on the radio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it before Spacehog too. I heard my music on the radio, the TV before Spacehog. So yeah. But the first thing within the meantime being a sort of hit thing was I was in the back of the cab in New York, going up West End Avenue towards where it hits Broadway. I
Okay.
remember it was a hill there going up, and I was in the back of the cab, and I was like telling the guy in the
Yeah.
driver, this is me. He didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Didn't give a fuck.
Right. Yeah. Royce, I really appreciate your time today. This was
My
great.
pleasure, man.
Good luck with President Alien. Comes out July
Oh,
14th. Everyone check it
thank
out,
you.
as well as Leeds and the Chain
Mhm.
EP, as well as all the other Spacehog, the back catalog. It's all great. Even Hoggassy, I'm sorry, I like it. But once again, thank you so much, Royston.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And a special thanks to Royston for joining me today. Check him out on Twitter at Royston Langdon. His website is roystonlangdon.com. President Alien is out this Friday. And if you have a guest suggestion, hit me up on Twitter at thefirstknoll19 or like the page Living My Youth on Facebook. You can go to iTunes, check out all the past episodes we've had. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Don't have iTunes? Not a problem. It shows on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, basically wherever you can find a podcast. A new episode comes out every week. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you then.